Today I'm breaking down in detail exactly how I was able to consistently book 3 to 5 meetings a day over the phone as an SDR. This process took me from where I was after month 1, having booked 0 meetings until I practically had to beg a guy to accept a calendar invite, to knowing that if I went into a room, put my headset on, turn the lights off, I always liked it dark, there was a very good chance that I was going to walk out of that room with 3 to 5 meetings on the calendar by the end of the day. So let's get into it. So the first thing you need to do to start booking 3 to 5 meetings a day over the phone is reverse engineer what it's going to take to do that. In other words, you need to figure out what the key inputs are that will lead to 3 to 5 meetings a day. This is a very important concept that extends well beyond cold calling and really applies to the business world in general if you want to succeed. You can't just think about outcomes. You can't just think, I want to set 3 to 5 meetings a day, or I want to hit $1 million in pipeline, or I want to make $100,000 a year. You need to figure out what the inputs are that goes into that, identify them, and then tackle them each individually so you can improve on all of them. So when it comes to cold calling, what are the key inputs? Well, one obvious one is your set rate. When you get people live, what percentage of them do you convert to a meeting booked on the calendar? The next one, answer rate. You can't really book a meeting if someone doesn't answer the phone. So what percentage of people, when you call them, actually answer the phone? And then people can't answer if you don't actually make calls. So how many calls are you making? These are 3 simple key inputs that go into booking 3 to 5 meetings a day. The more calls you make, the more people that answer, and the higher percentage of people you convert to meetings, the more meetings you're gonna start booking each day. So I literally recommend you start tracking this stuff. It's really simple to do in Excel. I tracked in batches of 100. So 1 through 100, if someone answered, and it had to be the actual person that I was seeking to call, so not like a wrong number, someone actually answered, that counted, and if I converted it to a meeting, that counted. Over time, once you do a few hundred of these, you'll start to get a good enough sample size where you'll be able to determine what your typical answer rate is over the course of 100 calls and what percentage of those you're able to set, because you can't improve something if you don't measure it. It's really hard to know whether you're good or not if you don't track it. Like the difference between a 20% set rate and a 30% set rate over time, the difference between booking 2 out of 10 lives and 3 out of 10 lives, you might not even realize the difference unless you're tracking it, but one is a 50% increase over the other. That's going to dramatically improve your results, even though it might feel like a small improvement. An analogy I use is in the NBA, going from a 30% three-point field goal shooter to a 40% three-point shooter is literally the difference of tens of millions of dollars. But if they weren't tracking that stuff, they might not even realize, because they take so many hundreds of shots, that whether they were making 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10. And by focusing and identifying the right inputs, that's how they're able to gradually improve, and it's no different in cold calling. All right, so now I'm gonna show you an example of what it actually takes to start booking 3 meetings a day, and it involves a little algebra. If you are serious about cold calling, you need to understand this. Don't shy away from it. But this is gonna change a lot of your perspective on what it actually takes, because it's so much easier than people make it out to be. So the basic formula, let's say you've made and tracked your results for a certain period of time, maybe like a month, and you figure out that you have a set rate of 30%, which is actually really good. I'm just using it to make this example easy, that about 10% of people answer the phone on average. How many calls do you need to make to start booking 3 meetings a day? The simple formula is the calls, that's what we don't know, is X, and I'll come over here, times the answer rate of 10% times your set rate of 30% equals 3. You divide both of these to isolate. Same thing over here, I won't actually write it out. And I already did the math. So you gotta make 100 calls. So now your question, what you should be focusing on is how do I consistently make 100 calls a day, knowing that these are my metrics? In reality, you don't actually have to do this on a piece of paper. It's pretty easy to actually just plug this into your calculator and figure it out. But you only need 2 out of the 3 variables to figure things out. But the most important part of this exercise is to realize how small incremental improvements in any of these key inputs make a massive difference. So now let's say you got good, you're booking 3 meetings a day and you want to go to booking 4 meetings a day. That might not sound like a lot, but that is a 33% increase in the number of meetings that you're booking. Again, I already did the math ahead of this, but keeping the number of calls the same, let's say you keep it at 100, you would only need to increase your set rate from 30% to 33% and your answer rate to 12%. Again, you literally would not even notice that difference unless you were checking it. You're increasing your set rate by 10% and your answer rate by 20%, but I'm making 100 calls, the difference between 10 and 12 people answering, you're not even gonna realize that difference unless you actually track it. So we're done with the math, and this takes us to the most important part of the video, the questions that you should now be asking in your head, now that you understand the key inputs and what goes into actually setting 3 meetings a day. It's, how can I increase those inputs? What can I do to increase the number of calls that I make per day? What can I do to increase the percentage of people that answer? And what can I do to increase my conversion rate when I get those lives? So for the first question, the number of calls, an obvious answer is to just work harder, work longer, make more calls. And I preach that. I'm a preacher of hard work, but I want to show you how you can keep your work level the same and work more efficiently to easily be able to make, let's stick with the 100 calls a day example. And the way I do this is through a process that I call coiling the spring. So again, you need to reverse engineer what goes into a cold call. Typically, you have to pick your accounts, make your lists, think about the templates that you're going to target and use for each of those contacts on that list. This is day-to-day stuff you consistently have to do throughout the quarter each day that will add friction and make it harder to make more calls. So what I say is coil the spring, do this all up front. So you spend some upfront time making all of your lists, making the scripts and templates that you're going to use to target those lists, so that throughout the quarter you can then just focus on execution and not have to do that throughout the middle of the day. When it comes to list building, you want to make them as homogeneous as possible. You want to make them with as many similar characteristics as possible so that you can create one script or template that is highly targeted for every person on that list, whether it's 20 people, 50 people, or 100 people. A couple obvious ways to do this is, one, contacts that all work at the same account. A better way to take this a step further is contacts that all work at the same account in the same department, and then you make lists for each department of that account. So let's call it account XYZ. So XYZ finance list, XYZ IT list, XYZ marketing list. The different personas and departments that your company has products or services that target, make different lists for each of those personas, because now you can make what I call value statements that are highly targeted for all of these lists. So if you have a whole list of people that work in finance departments, you can make one script or one template that's highly targeted to finance people, and you only have to change a few keywords like their name or the account they work for, and you can use words like strategic planning, budgeting, forecasting. If you're targeting HR people, you can take the same template and instead use payroll, talent acquisition, recruiting. I'll link to a video where I cover this process and value statements in more detail. It's definitely the next one you should watch, but this is how you remain targeted and move fast at a high quality. The next key input is going to be the answer rate, and this is probably the most difficult to control. A lot of it is largely out of your control, whether someone answers the phone or not, but there are ways you can improve this metric. And again, you don't have to improve it by much. In this example, we just took it from a 10% answer rate to a 12% answer rate, and that helped us go from booking 3 meetings to 4 meetings a day. So one way I used to do this was through strategically timed call blocks. The data shows, and I'm not always a fan of the data, but I found this one to be slightly accurate, is that good times of day to cold call people to increase answer rate are early in the morning before they've gotten their day started, and at the end, like the last hour of the day when they're likely wrapping up and probably don't have any meetings. So if I was going to dedicate a day to cold calling at 8 a.m., 8 to 9 a.m., I would be calling contact lists and companies that I knew were on the East Coast. From 9 to 10 Eastern, I would start calling my Central Time, the next hour Mountain Time, the next hour Pacific Time, because even though it's 11 to 12 Eastern in my time, when I'm calling accounts located in Pacific Time, it's early morning for them. And then in the afternoon, I would sort of do the same cascade, where at the end of the day, 4 to 5, I would call my East Coast accounts. Now, you don't have to work past 5, but if you really wanted to maximize your day from 5 to 6, you could call your Central Time accounts, then your Mountain Time from 6 to 7, Pacific Time 7 to 8. In one of my typical SDR days, I really used to do 2 call blocks, usually from 10:30 to 12 Eastern, and another at the end of the day from 3:30 to 5. You don't have to use the whole day like that. I'm just showing you how you can maximize your schedule to increase some of these variables. Another key way to increase your answer rate is simply through consistency. Having a consistent daily process where these contacts and prospects are in your cadence, so they're not just getting one call from you and never hearing again. A lot of people, when it's the third or fourth time they've seen a number call them, they get a little curious as to who it is. Not everybody, but a small enough percentage to increase your answer rate from a 10% to an 11 or 12%. Absolutely. Other ways are through pattern recognition. A lot of times people become more competent and more fluent with their CRM system, or they start to realize certain accounts pick up at a certain time of the day and don't pick up at another time of the day. This is hard and going to be different for every rep and depending on where they work and what they sell. But the more you do this and the more you consistently follow a process like this, you'll naturally start to recognize patterns that will be able to increase your answer rate. And then third, and the most important key input, and probably the one that caused you all to click on this video, is your set rate, which is a little bit of a loaded key input because it basically means how good you are at cold calling, getting better at cold calling and converting more live calls to meetings booked. So to be as concise as possible in the most high impact areas, because this could be an hour-long video, I'll try and link to one that I think will be the most helpful. The key areas that will improve your set rate and improve your cold calling ability are going to be 1, your tonality, 2, using what I call assumptive language, which is usually accompanied by a strong tonality, and then 3, the concept of selling time, selling the meeting, not asking too many questions or doing too much discovery on the cold call. You're focused on setting that meeting on the calendar. In terms of tonality, the most important one to focus on is using what I call a downward inflection. Most SDRs, when they struggle at cold calling or when they're new, they use an upward inflection, and the key time they do this is when it comes time to ask for the meeting. They'll say, great, if you're open to it, I'd love to set up a quick 15 to 20 minute chat to introduce you to the rest of my team. Are you possibly free next week on Wednesday or Thursday? Where you more want to use a downward inflecting tone like, great, I'm looking to set up some time next week just to get introduced and aligned with your priorities forward, and I can also introduce you to the rest of my team. How's your calendar look on Wednesday or Thursday? Both of those, I basically ask the same thing, but one has a very different connotation, like I'm assuming this is going to happen, I'm expecting this to happen, and I'm merely checking whether Wednesday or Thursday works for them. Also notice the difference in my language in those two examples, and this is why I said these two are usually accompanied together. In the first example with the upward inflecting tone, I used things like, great, if possible, I'd love to set up some time for a quick chat if you're open to it. You use these little caveats because you're subconsciously not confident in what you're asking for. So these caveats, they sound like, if you're open to it, I'd love to set up some time, if possible, if you're free. It usually has the word if involved in it, where you more want to use assumptive downward inflecting language like, I'm looking to set up some time, or let's set up some time next week. This is probably the quickest and easiest fix that I found being an SDR manager for over 2 years that improved SDRs' results dramatically and improved their set rates. So this is the high-level important stuff you actually need to understand if you want to go from where you are to booking 3 to 5 meetings a day. It's not going to be a special or quick technique that you learn on a YouTube video that's going to do it. Yes, that can help, but you need to understand the key inputs you need to improve in order to get to your end goal. So hope this helped. If it did, hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next one.